Hello there, and welcome to Trek Prime. We're on episode 32, and the first of 2019, and a big happy new year to all of you. We are here in the new year, and I was going to bring you a cosmetic change, but it didn't quite happen the way I wanted it to, so I bought you another one. I got my own Trek Prime hat with this little Christmas gift that Jeff got me on it, so, you know, as they say, he's a little bit TOS today, I'm a little bit TNG. Go figure. So, anyway, all that, TOS, TNG, whatever. We're here today to talk about something that's going to be fun, maybe a whole lot of fun, and that's going to be something that's meant for fun, and that's going to be Star Trek toys throughout the years. And we're going to take the Wayback Machine to the 60s, where none of us had any of the toys, I don't think. Back to the days when Star Trek was actually on the air. The TOS was actually on the air, and AMT designed the shuttlecraft, the actual shuttlecraft for that show, didn't they? That's part of the model license. They designed the shuttlecraft that you couldn't stand up in. I don't know if you remember noticing that.
Yeah, you kind of had to squat a little bit getting into it.
They were trying to scale it to make a model out of it.
I'm not sure if it was intentional or if it was by accident that it was like that. Maybe because I guess it has a feel like it's a secondary craft if you have to kind of bend to get into it.
The next generation ones, you don't see anybody really bending. You don't concentrate on it because the shuttles all seem sized for people. But like, what was the first one? Was it Journey to Babel or Galileo 7 or one of those? I think Galileo 7 was the first one with the shuttle, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because they named it after the shuttle, and people were kind of squatting to get out of it. And
yeah,
you could sit in it fine, but when you were standing up, you had to squat a little bit.
Somebody has that original prop somewhere in it, and I seen a picture of it, and it was kind of beat up, and I think they tried to restore it a little bit.
Now, all that stuff on the inside of it, is that part of the prop, or is that another set?
That's a good question. I don't know if they could. I mean, they would have to take parts of the shuttlecraft apart in order to get the camera in there, if it was made that way. I don't know. That's a good question. If they had to make two separate places for that.
And if I recall, the first Star Trek toys that were really very accurate were the original AMT model, which I've never personally had because, as you know, in the 70s, they changed the mold and they made all these bizarre cosmetic changes to the colony. Like,
they kept tinkering with it, yeah.
Yeah, they made the bridge a little off, the bridge module a little off, and they kind of put this waffle textured on the saucer, which I don't know why it was there.
Yeah.
But apparently the original model was screen accurate.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they've reissued it. I've seen the box they've reissued. I don't know. Maybe Stewart over there on Trek Yard. Hello, there's Stewart. Maybe you know if the original model is in there. Or is that same model we've been getting for the past 30 years? It's all messy. But anyway, I'd love to build that original model. I'm not just pay all that eBay money to get the original one in the box. So, but the Polar Lights one is good. But that's another story. We'll get to Polar Lights a little bit later. But anyway. Then Remco got the license, and they didn't really do anything with it. They took all these other toys, like little paper airplanes and little military tanks, and just slapped Astro Tank onto it. And you were supposed to make believe these little military characters were Star Trek people with parachutes.
Yeah.
And they made that little disc gun.
Yeah, it was like they took generic toys.
Label slapping, yeah.
They just put stickers on it that so.
Now I'm gonna do a little plug here for Netflix. If you want to see more on this subject, on the old Star Trek toys, pre-1970s, pre-1980s, check out their Star Trek volume of the Netflix original series, The Toys That Made Us. Go check it out. It's cool. End of shilling for the night. Anyway, well, no, because we're talking about toys. Sorry, but anyway, so, so next up, I believe after Remco, oh, yes. I'm going to use my tablet tonight for visual aid. And there's only one way to describe this visually. In the 70s, Star Trek went off the air in 1969. They went into syndication. And the show became very popular. So, they decided to make more toys during that time. And the end result was this.
The helmet with the stupid straw.
Talk about label slapping. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
If you want to see more on that, again, watch that Netflix show. I mean, it makes people wordless. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean,
That could be its whole discussion right there. What on earth that was?
I have never seen anyone wear one of those at a convention. I'm sure some fans have probably have one, but whether or not they want to wear it to, to a Star Trek
Oh,
convention.
Photoshop can be a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Oh, geez.
I know it's not a Prime, but hey, why not? Or even better one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, not
It's
gonna work.
surprised they didn't do that. Like, take a picture or have one of the actors just wear one of those just to sell it. Because if they're wearing it, so can we,
Fucking with a little red light in his head.
Yeah.
And he's about wee. Just a crazy, crazy toy. So yeah, they're thinking people will buy any old thing. They're not caring anymore. Okay.
A lot of toys back then were kind of weird like that.
They label slap a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Of course. Then came Star Wars.
Yeah, it changed the landscape.
Right. So, like I said, again, for Netflix, the toys that made us, they made that point really well. Okay. Yeah. So, but by that point, Star Trek had changed a little bit. And what we had after that is Mego started making Star Trek toys. And they had been known for making some other franchise toys, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
Didn't you have some of them?
Some of the movie ones. In fact, I have like from the Black Hole.
Movies. Okay.
Yeah, they made all the characters for that, and I think I don't know, maybe it wasn't Mego that did it, but they had like the Vincent robot from the Black Hole. Well, it actually was a model kit that you put together, but it was to scale with the 12-inch figures that they made. So. And
here are the original Mego figures, and for the time they're pretty screen accurate.
Yeah, they weren't bad.
The props are a little light blue for some reason, but they're pretty good figures, and I actually have some of them. And there was one problem with some of the later Mego figures. I don't know if we should get into those now, but there were some issues with them. These ones didn't have them, but and they had a bridge too, which I still have. I was going to bring it up to show people, but it's.
You're talking about the one that looks like a case opens up.
Yeah, I'm just going to show it here in a minute.
Had like the transporter in it and
yes, I
spinning around
but I think everybody probably knows what this looks like, but I'm just gonna kind of.
I've seen. I had friends that had it, but I was like never really like I had to have it. It just didn't to me look right, but Well,
no, it doesn't, and it's the funny thing. It's actually a pretty stable looking thing, but it looks, of course, nothing like the Enterprise bridge whatsoever.
Yeah, doesn't.
It looks like a comic book drawing from
a Gold Key comic.
Gold Key. Yes, it looks like a Gold Key version of the bridge. They made this is a Gold Key Star Trek bridge. It's just where everything is off in some way.
Otherwise, you don't have like a reel-to-reel, in there, or a chemical kit for Spock.
The bulky thing to carry around.
Yeah.
Hey, with all these reimaginings and reboots, who knows? The Gold Key thing could be the next movie here. So.
Yeah, really, exactly.
But if you notice, they have a transporter on the bridge, which would have been an interesting feature.
Yeah.
But basically, it's a magician's trick. You just, like they said on Netflix, you just shove the figure in there, spin it around, and he's on the other side. So.
Yeah.
But it's good for kids. It worked with the Mego dolls.
Yeah.
And of course, there were some Mego dolls that did not get it quite right. And here's the most prime example. The Mugato, I believe, is wearing a Planet of the Apes outfit.
Yeah, it never wore any clothes at all. It was just a big
had a lot of fur, and all of a sudden they get these Planet of the Apes outfit. So that was just weird, and it was orange for some reason. It looked kind of like a pumpkin or one of those candy corn things.
Yeah, I don't know why they felt they had to put clothes on it. I mean, they had the head right, but everything else was wrong. I don't get it.
Yeah. Speaking of which, let's go to another Mego figure that wasn't quite 100%. And speaking of Planet of the Apes, this guy.
Yeah, the Gorn.
He's actually a Marvel character, I think. He's some kind of Marvel character on the top. And they put the Klingon outfit on him, and he has a Planet of the Apes body. If you notice the ape hands. So.
Yeah.
But the Klingon is actually not that bad, except they reused. they reused him. But they've been reissuing figures. You mentioned over at Target, they've been reissuing these Mego figures.
Yeah, anniversary figures, yeah.
And apparently, one of them is this one, which is actually a more screen-accurate Gorn.
Yeah, they kind of redid it. I just got the Romulan a week ago at Target.
Oh,
because
cool.
it has that gold helmet, like remember in TOS the guys on
Terra Romulans with the green helmets on.
Yeah, they wore the helmet,
That's cool. Well, see, they're getting the Mego figures exactly right now, so
yeah.
I mean, the guy who ran it, Barney Ells, is I believe dead or upriver or something, but he's not running it anymore. So they're trying to get more screen accurate.
Yeah.
Okay, so now later, Mego, the motion picture came out, but the movie didn't really register with kids. I think we talked about that in our review of it.
Yeah.
So the toy line kind of fell apart, didn't it?
Yeah, it just didn't have the anticipation that they were hoping they'd get from people to come buy the stuff.
Now, I'm going to talk about some figures first because there's a lot to kind of go through with this, but I'm trying to find. Okay, here we go. Here are the Mego. They're kind of Star Wars scale figures, and I'm sure you will notice Kirk and Ilea are wearing almost the same uniform.
Yeah.
The guy Ilea is an admiral, so I call that the Admiral Ilea figure.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't put her. She was in a uniform very similar to the one Scotty's wearing.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't put her in that uniform. And
they gave Decker the
yellow
one, which she was going to wear in Phase 2, but that's really not the one he wore in the film at all, was it?
No.
No.
They pretty much got Bones' white suit right, but he also wore a blue one, so
that's right. Yeah.
It's weird, but it's still pretty acceptable for the most part. Here are some of the 12-inch figures.
Yeah. I have Spock. That's the only one I have.
Although I noticed that Kirk's a little cross-eyed for some reason. I don't know why, but he does. But they look pretty accurate. The phaser looks pretty good.
Yeah.
The Type 2 phasers, so they're not bad figures. The uniforms look better, and now with that one though, there was one figure that I can't for the life of me find a picture of that was 12 inches, and it was the Ilea probe figure with the white outfit on, which I get, but it had a problem that some of the other figures that Mego put out did, and we've talked about this many times in our after shows.
Yeah, I mean, as they age, the faces would turn green. The paint, something was wrong with the paint. I don't know what the hell it was.
I had the Incredible Hulk Ilea. So.
Yeah.
I had to chuck it because it was gamma ray, I guess. So, and of course, we can talk about Mego toys. Unfortunately, as much as I would like to, without talking about this little bundle of joy.
Oh, God.
We mentioned this, but it looks kind of cool sitting there, but apparently this is real trash.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the picture of the prototype one that they made, that wasn't sold, but the production line models were very flimsy and dangerous in some, because like I said, when I tried to pull it out of the box, I cut my thumb on the damn thing.
Yeah, you had to put double-sided tape on it. It was flimsy itself and would come
cracked. Yeah, and when you have to use like double-sided tape to put the top wall and the bottom wall together.
Of course, those collect dust and they get all flimsy after a while themselves. So this was a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, it was no good.
You see them on eBay for a lot, but I wouldn't pay a dime for the thing.
Yeah,
it looks like a piece of trash. It looks great when you look at it that way.
If you're a collector, just keep it in the box. Don't take it out because you ain't missing nothing.
Yeah, the box probably better than the toy. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's see. So the motion pictures stuff kind of tanked a little bit. Yeah. Oh, should I go into the motion picture Enterprise that came out, because that was kind of interesting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody made was it Nicole who made it, or somebody made a? Oh, before I do, I wanted to ask you: did your bridge, when you have it, did it have that logo on the back of it?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I guess Patrick Stewart may be right. Maybe the ship is actually called the Star Trek. Anyway, so
For the price that my mother paid for that when she bought that for me for Christmas, you think they would have had like something electronic with it, like maybe it would make a sound or have some lights or something, but for the price that she paid and that was what we got, I mean, that was a rip off, I think, for that. It was really,
South Bend actually made a very unique toy around this time. It was this Enterprise model. And it's a pretty good model, but the weird thing about it is you could actually take it apart and literally kit bash this. And so it's kind of cool. You can make all these other ships kind of in the motion picture universe. So, kind of the original retconner. That with it. And I mean, I've heard these are good. It's not that flimsy material they made that bridge out of, but I don't know how these go in the collector's market, but I'd kind of be interested in something like that. Just to check it out. It seems like it might work better. And they got a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
People have really tried to figure that out, and looking at it now, it does look like packing material, honestly. It really does.
If I was to get, let's say I was to get one of those now, what I would do is I would try and fabricate it, using the chair just to measure it all out right.
Like a mixed mold thing and just...
Yeah, and just make it out of balsa wood or something stronger.
Or you could get liquid resin.
Yeah, resin.
Like a resin model of it that could stand the test of time, and you could actually get rid of that silly hatch thing.
Yeah, I'd wire some lights into it, Yeah,
I mean, there's so many blueprints for that bridge. You could make a great model that even was in scale with the figures at the time.
That's right.
You could make a great toy that worked well, and it would probably cost you a lot more money than it would to buy that thing.
I'd probably just do the whole thing, because you see how you only got like maybe a quarter of the bridge?
A quarter of the bridge, and they got this silly hatch.
I would just go all the way around and finish it.
You could add a turbo lift door. You wouldn't have to have that dumb round hatch that made no sense. And you could have the back, and that little thing that Chekhov stood in, you could have that little video game, whatever. I don't know what you call it. But anyway, so Star Trek 2, no toys. Big movie, no toys. Oh, well. So, Star Trek 3, well, okay.
I think it was Ertl, wasn't it? Ertl that come out with the figures for Star Trek 3. They had a crew with a
yes, and the reason I mention that is because you gave me some of those toys back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see clearly in this picture, but they're held together by these little...
Yeah, stupid rubber bands holding the whole body together. I mean, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
Yeah, they sound like puppets and figures,
Just so they would be more articulated. It's like, well, now the rubber band, if it gets old, it'll crack, and then what happens? It'll come apart, and how do you put it back together? You can't. You have to glue it all back together. Then you lost all your articulation right there.
Here's all of the figures, but that Klingon dog, did it look like that? Because that looks more like
gray. It was actually gray. That looks more like a horse, not a dog.
He's got out of the bridge.
And show that picture again, because it looks like Krug was wearing something that mine didn't have it, like this brown thing on the front,
like a brown
book. Yeah, he didn't have that. It was more, mine was like chrome. He had this chrome thing on the front, if I remember right.
What's that round thing the Kurt's got in his head? Is that a helmet or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I don't know that thing that looks like Lassie, like a collie dog.
Yeah, it does. It looks like they just took a dog and put it in its place, but that's not what it looked like. It was more screen accurate what they ended up with.
Here's the actual toy, because this is what you described.
Yeah, bingo, there, that's the one.
Yeah. That was an actual advertisement from the 80s that I just showed you.
Oh, so that was probably like...
fake looking Lassie dog in there, and now they get the normal gray...
Yeah.
They're wearing that weird blue, brown...
I'm glad somebody must have pointed out and said, hey, you got to have it look better than that, so I'm glad they fixed it.
They look about right, but I have them. They're messed up figures. It doesn't take much for the arm to go all wonky.
Yeah, that's true.
And Star Trek 3, did okay, but I don't think it was a figure-worthy movie.
Yeah, it wasn't like a kind of a movie kids would like want to have toys from or something,
Then 4 came out and was successful, and even kids liked it. No figures again. Okay, so Star Trek 5 came out, and I don't even want to go there with that one.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Trek was very popular around then, but...
What they made for Star Trek 5 were these great big statues that had no joints or anything like that, and I saw them at some place, and I didn't want them. You know?
I had them, and this is the strongest one that I had, the Zybok one.
Yeah.
And the Zybok one is a big piece. I mean, if you look at the bottom of that here, it's like a big solid piece. It's a big solid character. There's no...
I always, the thing I didn't like about Zybok figure was that it looked too much like it was a figure out of the Bible. You know, the way they designed it. I mean, it looked like, you know,
Yeah,
like
he looks like one of the wise men or the disciples or something.
yeah, or like one of the, you know, the sheep herders or something. I mean, it
Yeah,
didn't
he had a
even look
shepherd. He looked
like
to him. But he
it
was a
didn't look
religious
like,
kind of figure, so it kind of made sense that he'd look like a figure from Nazareth or something.
yeah. I mean, it didn't even look like Cybok in a way. I mean, it just the face was wrong, and you know,
This guy, Bones, I call this the identity crisis Bones, where he's constantly, like
yeah,
bent. He's leaning over all the time, drunken Bones.
yeah,
He's longer than the other characters. He leans forward. I can never get him to stand up properly.
yeah,
And then you got Claw, who's permanently posed with a phaser. So
yeah. I know it. So
unfortunately, the phaser limps, so it looks like the phaser just kind of went. Pew.
yeah,
And you've also got Kirk, whom I actually is still pretty stable. Those backgrounds are cheap cardboard, so they came apart, but I still have them.
yeah,
The display stands are crap, but
yeah.
that's what you get for Star Trek V. Then 6 came out really successful, no toys, and
Yeah.
original TOS. We got to backtrack a little bit though to Next Generation. Because that's a really interesting story. The Next Generation came out, was really big, and so we got a lot from Galoob at first. We got a poster, which I had, which showed you these figures. You can see they're action figures. They look exactly like people on the show.
Yeah.
That isn't what came out.
No.
Okay. The figures were not bad for all of them, but I'm trying to find a more accurate representation here of the figures. Here's a more accurate representation of what the figures were. They weren't terrible, but they weren't what they were advertised there.
Yeah.
Now, that's a fairly good data, because some of these datas had eyes that were in the middle of their noses, and they had all these pock marks, and
Yeah.
they were kind of a disaster area. They had a manufacturing problem with the data figure. I had all of those, but some of these ones I couldn't find. I don't know if you had better luck with them. Some of the aliens, like I have the Antikin and the Soleil.
I get the impression that there weren't as many of those made, because if you look on eBay, a lot of them are pretty high price if you can find them.
Although the one I love, and this is the first thing I ordered, was my diecast D.
Yeah, I still have that one. Yeah.
I wonder, I wonder if you ordered an Eagle Moss Enterprise D, if it would stand up to this thing.
It was pretty accurate.
It was full diecast.
Yeah.
Full diecast. There was no plastic on this thing at all. It was full, complete diecast. The saucer came off, and it was pretty screen accurate.
Yep.
Although because the nacelle inlays were gold, it was like an active Enterprise, but still.
Yeah.
It was very screen accurate. The color was accurate. I totally wouldn't mind having a new one. I love this, but being that I was 8, I played with this like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Of course, I had the ship crashing into walls and rocks and pretty much simulating generations, I guess. I had this thing flying at warp speed into dirt and through boxes, back when you weren't just playing internet games and you had toys, so I played with that thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays you put that in a friggin' shrine, you wouldn't keep. But I rip that top open and take it out, like, eee. I want to zoom all over the place. I'd be like that. Remember how Annika Hansen was doing that with that Borg cube?
Yeah.
I was standing around all over the place. So this was a toy I played to death with. Mine is downstairs, but you can tell it's been played with. It's kind of an old, ratty Enterprise D now, so I may need to replace it, but they're not that big a deal. So but I love that toy. That was one of my favorite of the toys they made. This one, not so much.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it looked screen accurate, but it wasn't anywhere near the right size.
Because the cricket phaser is actually about that big. Because people look like they're if you see them use their fingers have lasers coming out of them, they're little tiny things.
Yeah.
This thing is sized for a child's hand, and so somebody won't lose it too much. And, for some reason, of course, I seriously don't think that they have the word Star Trek The Next Generation written on the phaser. So they just to remind you that it's a product. But there were some other cool Galoob Star Trek things that...
the shuttlecraft. I like that.
Yes. I'm trying to find a picture of that now, actually. Yeah, here we go. I still have mine downstairs, although the decals are ripped off. This guy.
Yeah.
The top sensor comes out, which I think is really cool. And, you know, I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I think we've probably mentioned this. We both love this design, generally.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love how it goes so well with the D.
Yeah.
It looks like it belongs right. The nacelles shape and the curvatures of it is so. And, you know, we didn't really see that shuttlecraft a lot. It was just kind of transport you place in place. But we never saw that really going on any missions.
Yeah.
Or for any purpose other than transport. It was underutilized. What we got more was something I'm not too fond of. This thing. That's another toy for later in the discussion.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was more appropriate for an Enterprise C shuttle. Wouldn't you say? Just the look of it, like a little generation earlier. On the other hand, the thing I wanted for Galoob, and this is the most infuriating thing because I actually ordered this, and I never got mine, is that.
Yeah.
I mean, you imagine me, 8 years old. I'm looking at that like a Warner Brothers cartoon. Dong!
Yeah.
Eyes are coming out, tongue wrapping around the back of my head. I'm just like a rabbit or something. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, I'm ready to give up everything I have for this thing. This is like I've found the you know you know, this is just it's like treasure, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, it was this was like the Lost Ark. You know,
Yeah, it's just something you wish they made, and it never was.
You heard what this thing was supposed to be. Those consoles were supposed to swing out to reveal circuits. Maybe the detector circuit was under there. We can do it. We did it this time. We did it for the new. We have the detector circuit. Yeah. I'm so happy we got it in here. We've been doing that now. We have to have a detector circuit quota here, you know? So, so the detector circuit was in there. Because it opened up and they said, it's circuits! You can open up the real circuits! So I wanted to see the circuits and the chairs come out. There's a transporter back here, and you have a thing that the shuttle could land on. And it was over 50 at the time. I ordered it, and boom! Nothing.
Yeah.
No toy, no refund, no nothing. Galoob lost the license. I mean, it's not even something I'm legally worried about because, you know, hey, $50 in the hole, get rid of the license.
Yeah.
You know, lesson learned, I guess. What do they take, caveat emptor? Anyway, so what is actually interesting because, you know, that model of the Enterprise, we didn't actually totally lose that, which I will talk to you about in a little bit. But there's also another toy, Playmates toy, that that I eventually got, and it was that.
Yeah.
It was actually a Ferengi ship that was kind of shuttlecraft size, so.
I wonder why it was that Galoob. They just pull a license from them. They couldn't make toys anymore. If it was the quality of the toys, or if it was just maybe there was something wrong with the company, or I don't know. I wonder what happened.
And there was some stuff they didn't even make, but they did announce them, like the Romulan here.
Yeah.
And even more so, there was a Wesley figure that I can't seem to find a reasonable picture of. And apparently there was a prototype for a Ferengi diecast ship, which never came out. So.
Wow.
A lot of Galoob stuff just never quite happened. But
it seemed like they had no idea that they were gonna lose that license. They were just having all these ideas coming out, and all of a sudden.
You gotta look at it this way: they were doing that during the first year of TNG too. Yeah. So I mean, they have the naked now. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, though, by the time
episodes there, but I mean, the Next Generation hadn't found its footing that year, so. I don't know. They really never had enough source material to really do as much as they probably wanted to do. You know, unlike another toy license, which we're going to get to in a minute. But I want to roll this back because I've been going through my experience. I just have a whole lot to say about it. So, you want to do a little bit here so I don't clog it up.
Well,
where did your toy odyssey start?
Well, the first toys that I got that were Star Trek toys were the motion picture bridge and the little figures and stuff and those things there.
The figures last more than the bridge did?
Oh yeah, the bridge. Yeah, that got broken to pieces there because what I did is I used to store it under the bed, and my jumping up and down on the bed, and the bridge was under it. It just
Oh
got
boy.
cracked,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. It's just not a
I'm surprised
toy.
that person takes slamming a door the way it looked.
It just wasn't age appropriate, I guess. I mean, it's a kid having a thing like that. It's not going to last. It's going to break. It's made to be broken, and it's not. All you got to do is just put it on a table, and it just has to sit there. You can't do anything with it. So it was a bad toy. The
Yeah.
figures lasted longer.
No, the figures are solid, if I remember. They're solid figures. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I still have some downstairs that you gave me, and paint peeling aside, they still survive.
Yeah.
I mean, you have an original Star Wars figure from the 70s, paint
That's right.
stripping aside, they'll still last.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, no, I know plastic doesn't biodegrade, but I wonder what mushy state a lot of those open bridges are in. Mangled chairs. Probably isn't a very pleasant sight, but anyway.
Yeah.
So, the motion picture toys. But when did you actually start getting into really dealing with toys you could play with, or was it around that time?
No, it didn't really come out till Next Generation, because then they really started to make toys for Star Trek at that point. That's when it really started to go.
Right.
You know,
I mean, as far as your life, when were the big toys that? When you were younger, though, were there any real Star Trek toys you could play with when you were about 9 or 10 years old, or was that kind of a dry spell at that point?
Let me put it like this: there were toys out there for kids young to play, but there just wasn't made that many of. I mean, it just not everybody could get one. And where I lived, it was very hard to find anything Star Trek that was a toy that you could
Probably
play
had more access to Star Wars because there was a lot more of that.
Star Wars just flooded every friggin' mall, every toy store, every.
Yeah, you could probably. Star Wars figures were pretty ubiquitous. There were always probably.
You could find a Star Wars toy with your eyes closed. I mean, it was just everywhere. I mean, you couldn't breathe it. It was just.
Kenner, who were a little company, actually just flooded the Star Wars thing right out. They made you wait for the figures with that little box you would get, but when they put them out, they put them out.
Yeah, they did. They did.
That's why even today they're not that rare, because there were so many.
That really was the beginning of this great big toy enterprise thing that started, with all these other companies like He-Man and then Strawberry Shortcake, and everybody was making Transformers, yeah, G.I. Joe. I mean, all that stuff started to really hit big during the 80s.
Right. And when the G.I. Joes came back, they were big toys in the 60s. When they came back in the 80s, they were Star Wars figure scale.
Yeah.
So everything was
kind of scaled. They also had a whole lot, like vehicles. They had tons of vehicles for those little G.I. Joe figures. I mean, every week.
Star Wars vehicles, too.
Yeah.
So I think, in a way, as much as I hate to admit it, in terms of the toys, Star Wars probably won that figure battle by a landslide in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, they just whooped Mego into obscurity. And if I understand it, Mego were this close to getting the license to have screwed it up. Yeah, the guy who ran it at Isles, he didn't see any market in this movie. He'd never heard anything about it. He only had a couple of test sketches.
Yeah.
And he decided to take the motion picture of Star Trek instead, which, I mean, imagine if Mego would made the Star Wars stuff.
With the quality of the stuff they were making, I don't think Lucas would have gave it to them, because I think, what they would have done is Lucas would have looked at the toys that they had made and would have thought, maybe something different, He
wanted Mego to do it, but what happened, because if you saw how they made the motion picture figures, they could have easily done the Star Wars.
They could, but the thing is the accessories wouldn't have been as great as like the Millennium Falcon that came out with Kenner and stuff. They did pretty good, but I can't imagine Mego doing anything like that,
They lost the license. They didn't do it. So Kenner, they were both small companies, but Kenner just became huge with the Star Wars stuff. So
yeah,
I think that really made Kenner in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they got a lot of money from that.
Because they really, I mean, they've even reissued, even though the brand is folded into something else, they've actually reissued some of the Star Wars figures under the Kenner name. So
yeah,
and there's been fan-made figures. That Kenner stuff is just so iconic now.
Yeah.
Aside from Boba Fett rocket launching figures that never came out, Star Trek never had anything that obscure. So
yeah.
Let's see. The Galoob, did you ever have much to do with them, or?
I had the figures and I had the shuttle, and that was all I had. Just that.
Was it the crew figures or the aliens, or?
I didn't have. Wait, I had a Ferengi. I did have the Ferengi. That was the only alien that I had.
Yeah, I never found a Ferengi. I always found the Anakin and the Soleil.
No, I had that one. They had a whole bunch of them up here, the Ferengis. I should have bought more of them, because I could have made like a whole different, because when I'd buy these things, I'd screw around with them, I'd try to make them look more unique, I'd add things on it, I'd paint it different or something like that. I was always doing stuff like that with the toys.
I had to paint my data kind of a yellow gold because the data I had was that weird brown freckle one.
Yeah, the freckles, yeah.
So I got the gingerbread man cookie data, as I called it. It was like a cookie. Like, it's an android you can also eat. It's crazy. It just didn't like a figure. It looked edible. It was like a jelly bean. It was like a jelly bean data. Like the little the caramel jelly beans, little spots all over, like a jelly bean.
Yeah.
Data. And when I was growing up, I thought Data was supposed to be like flesh white, but he's supposed to be kind of a goldish, actually.
Yeah, a little bit.
On the Blu-ray, sort of, actually his skin is iridescent kind of gold.
Yeah.
A pale gold, but it looks white.
Yeah.
Even though it's supposed
I would have colored it more like a metallic white. I think
right, exactly. It's more of a metallic white color. It isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't. That jelly bean color, whatever they use.
Exactly. Yeah.
And eventually, I had to scour through figures to get the correct data.
Yeah.
The jelly bean one, there was a lot of them, and now I found out that jelly bean one is the most valuable.
That's right.
But of course, being a kid, and I have no regrets. I ripped the case off, plastic. Who cares? I'll throw it in the recycling. We were doing recycling in 1988. Thank you very much. So yeah, we were way up early on the tip on that. So I was recycling by then. So I'd throw it in the recycling bin, and I just throw because when those figures came out, I remember they'd always advertise these weird parts. I'm like, oh, these come with blister cards.
Yeah, that's right. They did. On the back. Yeah.
Profile cards. Oh boy, cardboard. And they made that. We got a figure. Then blister cards. Like, oh my god, it's a piece of cardboard.
Yeah. One of the things I didn't like about the figures is that the phasers were glued to the hands. You couldn't even take them out.
These weird melded phasers. Look like they were mutated hands, and there was Buster phasers, of course.
That's right.
So it was a good first try. I mean, there was Star Wars figure scale. They were playable, except Picard had a phaser always glued to his hand.
Yeah.
Like somebody took super glue and just glued a phaser to him all the time, and they didn't have any accessories. They had no tricorder or anything like that.
Well, they did, but it had like a strap. Remember?
Yeah, it was like a long, and it was open, if I remember.
Yeah, it lifted open, but it had like
open tricorder. So
which it was like it was weird. I remember I used to cut the strap off, and I would glue the tricorder on the side instead, because they didn't have that. That annoyed me to have that little.
Yeah, they were kind of like the Mega ones where they were, except at least the Mega ones could hold the stuff.
Yeah.
They were molded plastic, but you could hold the stuff. It wasn't like they were glued to the hands.
That's right.
But the Mega ones were about like that. The glue ones were like that.
Yeah.
I would show you all this stuff, but it's down cellar in boxes, and
Yeah.
But anyway, so do you want me to take on the next thing, because I have a little memory of this?
The Playmates.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll set the stage, Golden Girl style. Picture it. Ames, 1994. Or was it 93? It was 93. Walking into Ames. And you worked at Ames, so you know that was kind of the Walmart of its day. That's where people just went.
Yeah.
That was kind of a big deal place. And I would go to the toy section sometime, I don't know, hoping to find some phantom thing. And it was around the holidays. And my parents were asking me what I wanted for Christmas and everything like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Around that time. And so I was in those days they had a holiday.
They had a pretty decent toy section in Ames, if I remember. They're pretty well stocked, and
they had a huge toy display. It was around the other side where you'd go to the restroom or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had a whole wall, an entire wall. I mean, a huge, it could be a couple of different things, full of these.
Yeah.
Full of them. Again, my tongue is dropping to the floor. I'm like, I gotta be dreaming. Because by that time, I'm 13, 14 years old, and, people are trying to get you mature stuff, but I'm like, I had those glue figures by that point, and, but I'm like, okay, my Christmas is excited this year.
Yeah.
Just all those. All those. And these were they were under 10 at the time, so, I said, just fill up my stocking with them. I don't care. Just get all the characters. And they had a Picard, and they had, I looked on the back, but we couldn't find Troy.
Yeah.
He didn't have Troy. Now, these figures, to me, even though there's been better figures since, I love my Playweight Star Trek toys. Here's another representation of them. I actually have all of these except for Yar.
Yeah.
The only problem with those are the accessories are really good. They fit in the hands, although the phasers have beams in them.
Yeah.
They come out. You can cut those off.
Yeah, that's what I did. I used to clip that off, yeah.
But it has a three-dimensional chess set, which, of course, you can see that it leans for some reason, like Leaning Tower of chess set. But
yeah, it was this weird plastic. It just was very flimsy.
It looks like rubbery plastic.
Yeah.
But you know what I did? What I did is I get one of those old butter cookie tins. My father was like those butter cookies at Christmas. So I get that cookie tin. I just put all the accessories into that. And down there, they're still in a 1990s cookie tin laying down in the cellar. All of them. That's why I keep them, because it really kept them well. So.
Well, you know, I remember they used to have a collector's case for the figures, and they had trays in them that you could pull out.
Yes, except I was going to get that, but I ran out of figures quickly for those.
Yeah. Well, what I did is I bought a whole collector's case just for the accessories, and I actually filled it. I mean, every toy, every accessory that went with the Playmates figures all went in that one box, and it was like just full. I mean, it was
yeah, but by the time that came out, I had way more than to fill that. I could have gotten, they weren't cheap either, so I could have gotten like 12 of those and still not filled them up. I have my grandfather used to go over to the grocery store and get those old blue fish things, and we clean them out.
Yeah.
My Playmates figures are in that, and they're busting out.
Yeah.
You know, I got to put them in another fish box because that's how I keep them. I mean, I know I should keep them better, but I have so many of them, and that's the unique thing about Playmates. We're just trying to find a representative picture of the Playmate Star Trek toys. It swelled from maybe about 20 figures to this.
Yeah.
I don't have all that. For example, I do not have all the Voyager figures.
Yeah.
And, you know, by that time, I don't know. They just had so many figures. I was buying Worf about 5 times.
Well, the first Worf that came out was very odd because it had it in a weird position where you really couldn't pose it out of this position that it was in.
Yeah, the Ferengi too had that weird bow-legged foot issue. They just these weird.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it was like a figure they didn't want you taken out of the box. Like it's meant to just sit in the box. And when you take it out as a kid and you're trying to play with it, it never felt right because it couldn't stand on its own without putting that stand on its foot.
And, you know, I don't know how you are about this, but this is how I am. I mean, nowadays, you know, people go out and buy things. They just leave them in the box and put them away for like 20 years.
That's right.
Even at 14, I knew that was what people did. That wasn't me. When I got those figures, those things came apart.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and besides, if you look at them, they're not really worth that much now.
Yeah.
And they're individually, that was a big thing with them. You see these big blurbs, individually numbered. And I knew what that was.
Yeah.
That was a focus on adult collectors.
Collectors, yeah.
Of which some of those figures are worth more than others. It's like Beanie Babies. It depends on what you get.
That's right.
Of course, one figure that's utterly worthless, I'm going to go there, is especially the Cardassian version, Seska.
Yeah.
You would go to KB Toy Store and there'd be a whole row of figures, all Seska.
Yeah.
Going nowhere, getting dusty, going on clearance, $5, $3, $4, 4 cents, whatever. I mean, not 4 cents, but, you know,
He was probably one of the least popular characters out of the whole bunch.
Right, and she had the Seska trading card. She's barking at somebody. Like, who wants this thing?
Yeah.
And then when you look at the blister card on the back, it describes the character in the most hideous way. Like, I don't want this character. It's from your trashy neighbor.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, I never had that one. But the thing is, like, I have Janeway and Voyager. I got all the DS9 ones.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about figures, though, like with some of the series, they put them out in stages.
Yeah.
Like they advertise them all, but they put out one group here, one group there. Like when they put out the Deep Space Nine, I think I got Cisco first.
Did they have an op station for the Playmates Deep Space Nine?
Oh, you know what? They never did much Deep Space Nine play stuff. They had a runabout eventually.
Yeah.
Which was not screen accurate. I don't know why. It was not exactly.
I mean, they went to the trouble of making the Enterprise bridge, Enterprise D bridge, which I loved that one.
I was going to get to that because that was my Christmas gift for '95, I think.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at the back of one of the magazines and they had a bridge there. And of course, by that point, I was like, I went to this with Galoob. I'm not going to send them $50. So they wanted you to order it.
Yeah.
And they said, first come, first serve. That I did that once. I do not fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
No. I had my heart broken in '88. I'm not gonna have my heart broken again in '94. You know,
Yeah.
that was my attitude. I guess maybe I was going through that teenage non-believing phase or whatever.
Well, it's like you said, you didn't, why would you trust them to do it a second time, right?
And besides, I mean,
Yeah.
especially when I'm getting the bridge from Mom and Dad Mutual, I don't want to rip them off. They're the ones buying it, so I figured, why rip them off? So, so one day I was at Toys R Us, and here's a weird memory of it. And here's how I remember this very well. We were coming back from Belfast, and we were in a hurry because the Next Generation was coming on that night. And to let you know what was coming on that night, it was the episode Parallels.
Parallels, yeah.
I don't know why I remember that. It was around Christmas time. We were out looking at lights and having a good time. So we decided to stop at Toys R Us on the way back. I used to beg my parents to go there.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and there it was.
Yep.
And I said, okay, Christmas is settled this year. And they were actually like, Andre, why don't you just open it tonight? So it's funny, we had Parallels on, and I was actually kind of enacting scenes with that thing. I was like the avatar of it. It was like I had that set up, and it's nice. It's easy to build. The view screen's like a tube TV, and you can see little planets orbiting, and it doesn't have the circuits or anything, but the consoles move. And I mean, by the time they made that, they kind of knew what the bridge looked like and how it worked, and
yeah,
it was nice. It was a really nice bridge. It's downstairs in pieces, but it still works.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no place to set it up anymore, but it still works. But around that time also, I think you have these figures, but I found this set, because I knew the figures were coming out, but they made this.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The TOS thing, and that's actually a bridge. And I didn't have the motion picture bridge, but from what I can understand, that cardboard bridge in there is a lot better than that motion picture bridge.
Yeah.
That survived in our basement for about 15 years before it finally got mildewed. Yeah. 15 years in perfect shape. And I'm going to tell you, if we hadn't had a leak down there, it'd still probably be there today.
Yep.
That was and there was strong cardboard. I actually used that as a bridge. It was a nice cardboard set.
Yeah.
I had all the TOS figures. So that was nice having the TOS Playmates figures too, one generation going on to the other. And I mean, motion picture ones too. Remember, you could get them in Bill V'ger.
That's right.
I have Ilea. And they didn't turn green, by the way. I have Sulu. I think I built V'ger, so I think I have all of them.
Yeah.
They had Kirk, Spock, Sulu. Did they have Bones?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
What about Decker? Do they make Decker?
No, Decker wasn't one of those.
It was this enough to make V'ger. That was the whole idea.
Yeah.
Didn't they also have some of like the Star Trek 2? Because I have a Con.
Yeah, they did make some Star Trek 2 versions.
Star Trek 2 Con.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the Kirk in the red outfit. I may. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know they. So okay, I guess we're gonna go up to '94 because they had a license. Star Trek 6 was over, so they were going to be doing Generations. They had the license when Generations came out. It was a pretty new license, so they had the opportunity to do the Generations figures. Now, the TOS line they actually put out, which I honestly never had, looked okay.
Yeah.
Only problem is they didn't articulate the arms.
Yeah.
In the middle, they didn't articulate. I don't know why. The figures were only partially articulated. But on the other hand, when we got to the actual Next Generation characters, such as it were, something went a little off. I don't know if you can see it.
The uniforms were.
They used some sort of uniform test uniform they had for an early version of it before they actually finalized it, and somehow, I didn't buy all of them.
Yeah.
Because I figured, these are gonna come out right someday. When I saw the movie trailers, that we weren't wearing those things, so
yeah.
What I did buy, and this kind of came with Generations, and I still have it downstairs in really good condition, is the Enterprise D / Star Trek 6 work.
Yep.
I say that because in Star Trek 6 they reuse that. So
I liked it had the light would glow in it, and it had the sound of the engine running. It was pretty nice. I liked it.
And of course, each of the figures would come with a poster that looked kind of like that.
Yeah.
I got tons of them downstairs still in the package, so those might be a big deal. Although, you know what? I saw these a lot. A lot of people really get into these. I never get a lot of the 12-inchers. I know they were around.
I did buy some, but not all of them. Because they were kind of pricey, I think, at the time they come out with those.
Now, I do have this downstairs. I don't know how good a shape it's in my Playmates Enterprise B.
Yep. I have mine, yeah.
Like I said, 94 was, I call that Generations Christmas because everything was Generations that year. So
yeah.
I didn't get this guy because they were doing that a lot. These constant, and this is from a scene that wasn't even in the film.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they really pushed that skydiving thing. When you got the book, that was in it. When you saw a lot of the promo books, that was in it. And it's a deleted scene that was ever actually in the film.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you got the collector magazine. It was actually stills from that scene in it.
Yeah, on YouTube you can find it. They have the actual scene that was cut out. You can watch it right there on YouTube.
And it's kind of like an unexposed film scene.
Yeah.
I don't know if they actually filmed a proper scene of that.
Yeah.
But they kind of put it on the cutting room floor, so that was a little unfortunate. What I did not get, because they were kind of overdoing it with the Enterprise D at this point, I had the original Enterprise D the Playmates made.
Yeah.
One regret I had about it is the saucer didn't separate. But kind of picking nits, I guess. But it was a good screen accurate model. And they had the gold one. Remember the gold one they had?
Yeah, that was, I don't know why they made a gold one. I mean, I guess that was supposed to be just for collectors only, I guess.
And then, they had this thing, but I didn't have any interest in that because it just had pieces that would just fall off.
I don't know, I bought it. It was kind of funny because you'd press a button and the whole section would just fly off, and you'd see fire underneath it or something. It was weird, but.
And I don't know if you can see the top of it. Here's that Generations giant communicator pin that I think they wore on Voyager one time. That oversized pin. They made these communicator pins that looked like friggin' brooches.
I know, they were huge. Remember they started going into those little tiny figures, and you'd have like a play set. It would, like a tricorder would open up and there'd be like a whole world in the tricorder. And
yes. I am going to actually go there right now.
Yeah. Was that part of like the micro machines or something like that?
Playmates, they started getting into these special collector sets like the 1701 series.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But if you're talking about things like that.
Yeah.
Tricorder turned into sick bay.
Yeah.
But there were little tiny figures that you could easily swallow, so I think they had a very strict age limit on them.
Yeah.
But luckily, it was one of these. I can actually show you downstairs at some point. I don't have it today. The Galoob bridge finally happened on that scale.
Yeah, on the small scale.
That's basically the Galoob idea, except that had a ready room. So.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of these. I have the Borg ship that opens up.
Yep.
I have a Romulan one. I have a Klingon bird of prey.
Yep.
I just get a bunch of them, and I have a transporter room. And it was odd. At the end of this series, they released Apollo stuff, like Saturn V stuff.
Yep.
Which I found weird. I don't know why they had Saturn V stuff.
It's like it was so easy to make these things. It's like they got really carried away with it. They really started to make all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's like when they started making those Ninja Turtles that were dressed up as historical figures.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend, she was into those Polly Pocket things. It seemed like that was like the phase at that point was you had Mighty Max, and then you had Star Trek Next Generation doing their little tiny figures, and I mean, everybody was doing this.
I got this for $1 at an antique store last year.
Yeah.
Klingon heads, actually the Klingon High Council. There's also a Borg one like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They were nice. You could set them up on a shelf when you weren't playing with them.
Yeah, they were kind of like Polly Pockets in a way.
Yeah,
it's a good comparison. Wasn't Polly Pockets around that time too?
Yep.
So yeah, they were trying to get the Polly Pocket thing because there was always this idea that little girls like little tiny things and guys like big giant figures. But the weird thing is they decided, well, guys like little things too, so we'll have the little mini universes and stuff. Maybe for older kids, maybe who wouldn't swallow them,
Yeah.
people who could display and make little scenes up or something. I have
Well,
this
the sets were pretty. The things that were open up, they're pretty neat. Like you said, you had the Enterprise that would open up and had all these rooms on it and stuff. I mean, it was
Yeah,
pretty neat.
I have this idea there were people with those beta cams or whatever, or those 8mm cameras who are filming these little fanfics on these things. You could do a lot. You could take little tweezers and make the characters move if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It was very imaginative, and I thought they were really cool because they had a lot of detail on these toys. The Playmates usually got them pretty right. They detail everything, but they had this whole great universe of TNG to work with.
That's right.
The designers were very open at the time about using these things, unlike today. At the time, the designers wanted people to use their stuff. They wanted the licensing, and they wanted people to have fun, and they weren't hoarding like today. So, I'm throwing a lot of shade there, but it needs to happen. But anyway, so so they had accessories too, like oh yes, we forgot to mention the Mego communicators and stuff, didn't we? Is there a reason? Weep. Okay, but seriously, with Playmates, we actually got a 3rd to 7th season phaser, which I actually ended up ruining by trying to paint it. It still works, but I painted it lighter gray for some reason.
Yeah.
But I don't think those are that hard to find, actually, so I'm not really worried about it. I could probably get a new one. I had a First Contact phaser, which I got again, that actually works. But we're getting into First Contact later. The one I really want to get, and it's hard to find, I painted it for some reason, is the tricorder.
Yeah.
What is a really good tricorder? My medical tricorder is fine. I have a medical tricorder from later. They made a TOS phaser, which is really good, except one little problem with it. The phaser 2 doesn't come off. Which could get corrected later. Another one I have, I can't show everything on here, is the cage phaser.
Yeah.
Which I think is over here next to me right now. It works like a charm. I had to take the battery out, but it works like a charm when you get the battery all cleaned out.
Yeah.
So it still works. So, okay. First Contact came out, and they did something that I wasn't crazy about. And this is why I never bought a lot of the figures from them. They changed the whole scale of the figure.
Yes, they did. That was weird.
Yeah, they kept the scale of the 12-inch figures exactly the same. I don't know why I didn't get more of them. But we had to buy another Picard, another Worf, and another Alpha, but they were like a centimeter bigger.
Yeah.
And they weren't articulated in the arms, if I remember, either.
Yep.
They were closer to the Generation figures.
Remember wait a minute. Do you remember the little 10-inch figures Playmates made that talked? They were electronic figures. You press a button in their back and they'd say a phrase from the TV show.
Were those from First Contact or?
Nope, this was TNG, the series. They had a Riker and a Picard.
Yeah,
and
those weren't around enough for me to really get any of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I had a few of them. There was a button on the back, and you would on Picard, you'd press it, and it would say "make it so," or they would say, or something else on the back of it.
Right.
So it was pretty neat. I like those. Here
are the figures. The only figures I have in that series, I have Cromwell Cochrane, which is what I call him.
Yeah.
And that is Ephraim Cochrane and Lily.
They didn't even make the Borg Queen out of that collection, which was what I thought.
Oh, they made it just a generic Borg. They should have made the Alice Creed Queen.
They did with the smaller figure version of it. Remember when that Voyager came out?
Well, wasn't that the other one though? Was the other one who played her? What's her name? It wasn't Alice Krieg. It was the other one from Voyager. Yeah. They made with First Contact. That would have been a lot better, actually. You're right.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't make a figure out of her. They just made a one Borg and that was it. And
So anyway, so they put out an Enterprise E, but again, like with Generations, we didn't quite get it right.
Yeah.
We got a test design, and it's just a weird thing, And I don't know if you can see it clearly on the bottom, but of this, but they actually tried again with the next movie, but Playmates was still doing well at that point, but around 96, I was collecting for another Playmates thing, because that was around the time that another series came out. So I was collecting for Voyager.
Yeah. I remember they made Sequest DSV figures. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I never got any.
Playmates. Yeah, they were basically like the same as the Star Trek figures. They had they were sculpted like the same. I mean, it almost looked like they were part of the same collection. Really, they had all their accessories and everything. And
Yeah, Playmates made those. Yeah, the only problem is that was for the first season of Sequest, because in season 2 came out, they changed most of the cast.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've seen Sequest. So when I first started really getting into Sequest heavy was during the second season. So we never had a figure of characters like Dagwood or Piccolo or any of them.
Yeah,
we just had characters in the first season that were gone by the second.
that's right.
So, and I didn't see as much of the first as I did the second year.
Yeah.
And I think, was it on 2 or 3 years, that show?
I think 3, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw the second season. Season 3 went really downhill and it went off the air. But second year, I really wanted the Dagwood and the Piccolo figures, but they never made any of them. Sequest, I think, took a nosedive in popularity the second year, and they didn't make the figures. But I wish I'd get those first season ones.
Yeah.
I didn't see as much of the show because when Sequest first came, was it 94 that came out?
Yeah, right around the early 90s, yeah.
Was it, as I recall, wasn't it during TNG when TNG was just getting over?
Yeah, it was, right around towards the later years.
I mean, I'm watching D Space Nine, I'm watching TNG, I'm finishing up Quantum Leap by that point. I was trying to squeeze Sequest in. ITV was just... I remember how they used to put all those shows on like Thursday night?
Yeah.
Well, except Next Generation.
That's why you had to know how to use the VCR recorder.
I think Sequest was on Thursday night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They'd be like, okay, Quantum Leap, I want to go to bed or watch Sequest, I'll go to bed. So I always missed it because I wanted to go to bed at that time, but because Quantum Leap was getting finished, and I love that. So I wish they had Quantum Leap figures, but they...
Yeah.
I'd love to have one of those Ziggy things.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I was really into those sci-fi shows at that time. So, we didn't have the cable to get them. So, okay, here's the Voyager series. I think this is the first gen of Voyager series. Or at least second gen. I don't have Tom Paris. I don't have Harry Kim. I'd love to have Species 8472.
Yeah, I never could find that.
I was at an antique mall in Brunswick last year, Brunswick, Maine, and they had the Harry Kim. Oh, you notice the 2 Seskas in back of Neelix?
Yeah.
Yeah, that Cardassian one was the one they had a lot of. But anyway, so the 7 of 9 one, that Silver 7 of 9 one, I would have loved. That was a Target exclusive. We didn't have Target up here at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
You know how that was. We wouldn't have a store, but they'd have it out at only that one.
That's store. Right around the time when they started doing these store exclusive figures, and I still hate that.
Yeah, that's.
I know, just to draw people to a store.
Yep. The only 7 of 9 figure I have, I can actually show you a toy. Because I was at the Goodwill one day, and I saw some figures. I think they were Ninja Turtles for $3, and there was some starting figures for $3, and one of them was this.
Oh, yeah, I got that one, yeah.
7 of 9, but this is not just 7 of 9. This is 7 of 9 tertiary adjunct of Unimagic 01.
Yeah.
The original, you might say. It even comes with that assimilation thing. Oh, did I mention I went over to Spencer's and got one of those things?
Oh, yeah.
Those green Borg things. I was going to get some old stuff and set up an alcove downstairs.
Well, here's the thing. If you want to do that, I got just the thing you could get. It's one of those plates.
I broke the first one. I had to get a new one.
Yeah. It's like a glass plate, and it has the electricity that goes on inside of it.
Yep, I have. That's the one I have. Yep, I broke the first one, but I have a new one. So
yeah, the thing weighs a ton. But I think it was Suncoast that used to have those, and they had blue and they had green, and I wanted to get the green, but I ended up with the blue one. So I was like, shoot, I
got the green one at Spencer's.
Yeah.
I don't know if they sell them anymore. They had the Borg thing. Because originally they didn't have that. In the Next Generation, they had this straight panel that just sat there.
That's right.
It was green, but it just sat there. It was like a different design, too. But they just used that thing. I think it was actually probably that very thing.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
They used in the movie. So, and I used to go in there and say, yeah, everybody wants them because the Borg are using them now. So, remember a time where Star Trek pretty much ruled everything? I think about it. It was huge at that time.
Well, the thing of it is when they would design stuff for the series, they would draw what was out on the market, and when people recognized things that they were using, they'd go out and everybody would just binge buy all these things, and they would and try to create it themselves. I mean, it was inevitable that people would figure it out, how they made stuff. So yeah, I remember seeing a lot of people go into the store to buy, some item or some pieces of items together to make something that they saw on TV or something. I mean, it was just, that's how some creative minds are. I mean, they go out there and they just build stuff, and people like to build things and make props.
7 of 9 figures, and they must be exclusive. But I could never find those things.
Which one is that?
She's like wearing that kind of reddish suit.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I wonder if it was a
7 of 9s were not that easy to find around here.
There was a Target one, and there was an online exclusive one. I think it was StarTrek.com. But I didn't have internet then, so forget me. So yeah, I couldn't get a 7 of 9 figure for the life of me. They had a 12-inch one.
It was easier to get the 9 or 10-inch figures.
Yeah, the 12-inch one they had. It was easier to get that. It was a silver suit.
Yeah.
It didn't look much like it. I was one of the ones on the scale with the other figures.
Yeah.
I don't know
they
why.
Had the bigger ones.
I ended up getting a Christmas ornament.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And what they did is they had her in that ridiculous pose they had her in. Remember?
Yep.
She's touching her knee.
Yeah.
But she's in the blue outfit. So I'm like, why do they pose her like that? Why didn't they just have her? Because 7 of 9, that was only an early thing when they had her posing around.
That's right.
They were trying to, what would they call it? The 18 to 35-year-old male audience they were trying to sell to.
Yeah.
Presumably, they wanted to see a female character showing a bit of angle or something. I don't know.
I don't know why they think the cutoff date would be 35, because there were men way older than that were tuning into her.
Yeah, the guys that midlife crises too. They didn't figure out on that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, or maybe even hormonal 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Why just limit it to 18, 30? But they have demographics in these places. I don't know anything about those. But anyway, so yeah. Here's some D Space 9 ones. There was some later D Space 9 ones I actually didn't get because, well, I just couldn't find them. Like, for example, they have a DS9 War, which I could never find.
Oh, yeah.
And I was looking for that bald Cisco all over the place because all I have is a Cisco with the hair.
I remember Odo was kind of hard to find, but I did get him.
Yeah, he was in the second wave. I got Cisco, Kira first, Dax. Odo and O'Brien and Jake were in the second line.
Yeah.
And Quark, I think, was there too. Way later on, they had a Garrick figure who was blue for some reason. They had blue Garrick, which I never got because I didn't want blue Garrick. Garrick was gray. But they had, then they had Rom, but the Nog figure that came with him was unarticulated.
Yeah.
It was just like a little rubber figurine. Speaking of which, remember those figurines that Suncoast used to have? They were just little, just generic, unarticulated, TOS era characters glued to display stands.
Oh yeah, it would just you meant to just be like little statues or something.
Yeah, they were figurines. They weren't proper figures. You couldn't do anything with them.
Yeah, and they didn't even look anything like the characters.
No, they were not good sculpts really.
No, it was just a money grab, and I didn't fall for that.
they were. Yeah, they're barely toys, I guess you could say. They weren't.
Somebody had told me once, you said, was right around that time we were talking about, and he said, there's a lot of good stuff out there, and there's a lot of crap out there, but you got to be smart enough to know which is which.
The other thing about it, Suncoast sold a lot of crappy Star Trek stuff. Like, they remember they had the Geordie visor, but it was those little tiny State Fair glasses. They had the hologram stuff in them.
Yep.
It wasn't a Geordie visor. When I used to do it, this is kind of funny. I get that, and it would look like Geordie's visor when you put it on. It had that kind of EM look on it.
Yeah.
But what I do is to make it more accurate. I would take one of my mother's barrettes, spray paint it gold, and just tape it to the front so it looked more accurate.
Jeez.
It didn't look. It looked like just. They looked like just generic, fair prize glasses.
Yeah.
Painted silver. They said, "Oh, this is a Geordie visor." It's just it's a cheap thing. But you didn't go to Suncoast to buy stuff. You ended up buy videos. But they used to have a lot of kind of crummy rip-off toys that were barely licensed.
Yeah.
But think about that visor. That was actually a Paramount product. It goes to show you how actual Paramount, in the old days, in terms of their own Star Trek licensed products that they actually made on their own, weren't really good at it.
That's right.
They would just slap the name on anything. It was like the Shaquille O'Neal of...
The things that I used to buy at that store were like the posters, the Star Trek posters.
Right, they'd be good at that. You could buy the posters. Movies, of course, were good.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have books and stuff that were
And they
okay.
had some great shirts. Remember the T-shirts, the black?
Yes, the
And
shirts were good.
yeah, I
Things
used to
like
like
that,
getting
or more
those.
promotional items were good. Posters, T-shirts, hats were good.
Yep.
Um, I believe, didn't they have the like around Star Trek 6, didn't they have that big Enterprise cardboard thing at one point in there?
Yeah, I remember seeing that in the store, and I was trying to get them to let me buy it off of them when they were done with it, and they just wouldn't give it to me. It was like, God.
Yeah, sometimes they'll do that. Like, oh, well, we're going to throw it out of the trash. Well, give it to
Yeah,
me. We can't do that. We got to throw it in the trash. Why not throw it in the trash and waste it?
yeah. I don't get it. It's just they're supposed to get rid of it or
You
discard it.
might have gotten a guy who just got a job there and didn't want to mess up.
Yeah,
Sometimes I find that you get a person who's just there. We're just doing our job type people who
yeah,
aren't loose yet, who are trying to make sure the boss loves them all the time, and they're like,
yeah.
we got to do everything by the book, by the book.
I mean, if I was working there and somebody wanted to display or something like that, I'd sneak it out somehow and say, yeah, okay,
Or even so, I'd say, well, I'll ask the manager.
I wouldn't even ask the manager. I mean, if it's going in the dumpster, on the way to the dumpster, I'll just take a pit stop at somebody's truck and I'll say, oh yeah, I dumped it, but it's
Yeah, the video stores
about it.
actually did that. My mother went in there to ask for it years ago. It was a Star Trek 5 one, and for the video collection, and they said, we're just going to throw it out. Just take it. You can have it.
Yeah, take it. I mean,
there was a video, so they said, well, if we're just going to throw it away, it's going to collect dust anyway, so.
Yeah, well, what are they going to do? Send the FBI over there to make sure everything is in the dumpster?
Yeah, you took that Star Trek thing!
Jeez.
Report to FBI headquarters. You took our Star Trek cardboard thing. It's just a piece of cardboard. It's not like the Klopman diamond,
I know. I mean, the people are so scared all the time, about that.
Human paranoia isn't very logical, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got I got that downstairs, so it's still in good shape. Didn't get mildew, but I still have to figure out how to hang the thing because it's huge.
Yeah.
But it works. It's good.
I mean, even when they did when they had the Phantom Menace come out and they had all these big cardboard Millennium Falcons over the toy section.
Yes, I remember when the Phantom Menace came out, they had one of them at Movie Gallery. I think had one of them.
Yeah.
Movie Gallery. I think when Brewer. Because I remember. Can we drag Star Wars in here just a teeny little bit?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just
We've already had Star Wars here. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
So you can't talk about Star Trek toys and Star Wars toys without the other because they're kind of mutually exclusive in a way.
Yeah.
In the 90s, we're getting into where the Star Wars is in a dead zone.
Yeah.
As my friend Henrique mentioned, hi Henrique, all you had were the bendable figures.
Yeah.
What are the first Star Wars figures he got? He talked about going to the store wanting the Kenner ones, the reproductions, and all they had were the bendables. Like,
Yeah. I don't know what the fetish is over these bendy figures. I never liked them.
Yeah, they have these big Stretch Armstrong arms that don't do nothing. They're just kind of worthless dolls. But that's all they had with the bendables at that time.
Yeah.
Then and then in the middle '90s, remember they had that Shadows of the Empire things. They started reissuing stuff, and But around '93, '94, all they had was the bendables. So Star Wars wasn't in a good place at that time. Between Return of the Jedi and the Shadows of the Empire. But yeah, I remember when Suncoast came out. My father. I don't think he'd mind me saying this. He was working a long day at work, and a bunch of friends took him to the original Star Wars in '77, and he fell asleep after the cantina scene. Not because the movie was making him fall asleep, he just was tired.
Yeah.
He fell asleep on Star Wars? But he's like, yeah, you should have made it to the lightsaber scenes. You would have stayed up for that.
Yeah.
Star Wars is the last thing you fall asleep on.
Yeah.
Most people were like, it's like a hyper caffeine reaction, Because that movie is a trip, So, but he was just tired.
Yeah.
But he always wanted the little Max Rebo band, Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
He always wanted that because he loves the little music people. He has those every time those come out, they're limited edition. I can never get a hold of them fast enough.
Oh, yeah.
If I find them next time, I don't care if they're $1 million. Well, not $1 million, whatever. I'll just forget it, get it for them. Because every time they come out, I'm like, I'm going to go back, and they're never there. Everybody wants those Star Wars Cantina people.
Yep.
Band. They always want the little people with the horns. So... It was rare collectibles. So, anyway, when Phantom Menace came out, my father agrees to take me and a friend. The friend didn't show up. We went to see it. And, of course, it's Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
He enjoyed it well enough because he's not a big Star Wars person. But I'm thinking, oh, boy.
Yeah.
Because remember, I just seen Insurrection. So, back to Star Trek. Insurrection.
Yeah.
We're doing our movie series. I'll tell you my opinion of the movie later. But I liked it enough to go to Playmates for merchandise because they actually did do some merch on that. So we get a revised Enterprise E, which sort of a revised Enterprise E.
Yeah.
which came with a screen-accurate captain's yacht, which I actually took apart and re-glued the nacelles on because they had it up in flying position. We've talked about the Enterprise E having the captain's yacht right where the torpedo bay is, which is technically pretty stupid, but, you know, I guess somebody at Starfleet Engineering was asleep on the watch and they figured that one out, so.
Yeah.
So Insurrection, I think, were those figures in First Contact scale, or were they in the, wait a minute.
I think they were the Playmate scale, if I remember right.
The Playmates made the stuff for that, but I'm just wondering, now that I think about it, did they even make little figures for Insurrection, or were they all 12-inch for that?
Well, the ones that I bought, I didn't buy any small ones. I bought the ones that were like 7, 8 inches tall.
Yeah, because I have them. I have a couple
claw.
of them. I know I have, what's her name, Donna Murphy. What was it? Anish.
Yeah.
I have Anish. And, you know, the thing is, I used to buy the aliens because I always thought they'd be the rare ones.
Yeah.
And they usually were.
Yeah.
But I bought Anish. I didn't buy that little mole or whatever. What do they call that thing? It was a little.
I don't know. I can't remember.
It was supposed to be a big. I remember that movie came out. They had that the creature on everything. It's like, this is gonna be about some little animal, and it's like that animal's barely in it.
Yeah, I know, and
it's a plot device for a kid to lose it, so Data has to go find them.
Yeah, I kept it in his pocket, and it was like,
it's like you see all the little creatures like sticking out at you, like this could be all this little animal, you know? It's sort of Insurrection about this little palm creature, little mole thing, and it's like barely in it. And Suncoast, I remember, had those little things. It
was just this little thing.
They walked on. They were just little creatures.
Got maybe like 10 minutes of screen time, and that was
a big deal. That little, what do they call it? Was it the Baku? Was it Baku Rill?
I don't know. I can't remember the name of it.
I remember they used to call it the Palm Cat.
Yeah.
It was a little thing. It had nubs. It walked on little furry nubs. It didn't have feet.
Yeah, it didn't have like a defined limb or anything to walk on. Wasn't
it a CGI thing though?
Yeah, it was.
It was dark. You never really saw it in the light much. It was in a cave when he had it.
At least it wasn't a string puppet.
Oh yes, we're talking about Menace Yoda. Yeah. Okay, so here's the Enterprise E from Insurrection. Notice how they just mildly revived the original.
Yeah.
It's almost the exact same thing.
A few changes there, but not all the changes that they needed.
And there's the captain's yacht, which is actually pretty good right there. The only problem is it doesn't go anywhere on the ship. It just kind of sits there.
Yeah.
Can't attach it to the ship. And it doesn't go in where the ship is on the bottom. It's not to scale with it.
Yeah.
What I would have done is made the Enterprise E bigger and just, you know.
Yeah, if they'd have made that toy bigger just to scale with the shuttle, it'd have been expensive as hell. I mean, you wouldn't have been able to just pick that up.
Or they should have made the captain's yacht a little tinier.
Or maybe they should have just made the yacht bigger so you could put figures in it. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, they did the opposite.
Anyway, here's the two together. The First Contact one. Look at the little minor changes they made to it.
Yeah.
Little tiny minor changes. But I had suckered into that one too. So I have two not quite right Enterprises and Playmates down there.
Yeah.
I prefer the First Contact one because at least it's based on a real design. I don't know what that Insurrection was. Yeah. They should just forget the captain's yacht. Let's just make a captain's yacht for minifigures.
Yeah.
You know, and just had like an Enterprise E and built it screen accurate, which another company did. I'll get into that one.
Well, here's the thing. There was already model companies making the Enterprise E, so why would anybody want to go out and buy their crappy version of it, you know?
Well, so you'd have it all there, but they should have at least made it a little more screen accurate.
Yeah.
But so anyway, Playmates licensing is tricky because let's see. Voyager continued having figures. The Playmate stuff kind of stopped coming out in the late 90s. Voyager went off the air in 2001. Playmates seemed to not have the license anymore. When Enterprise came out, I think Art Asylum had the license during that time.
Right.
So okay.
And Art Asylum has done great with the figures and the ships.
Art Asylum made really good figures. If I remember, they were the ones who could take the heads and the hands off.
Yep. And they started to make have the whole bridge all together for the NX-01, but something happened and they couldn't finish it, and so you got a lot of people out there that don't have the finish or ever will have the finish unless they're crafty enough to be able to create the rest of it on their
Well,
own.
like I said, here's some examples of it right here. I have this figure, and I think she came with some of this stuff. Here's the Paul on part of the bridge.
Yeah.
You could actually get some of the figures, but they never completed the Enterprise line, did they?
No.
But anyway, just as an aside, I'm just trying to find a lot of these or not. Well, here's some of them. I always thought for some reason Captain Archer had a very tiny head. Maybe this is a scaling.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
But they're actually pretty accurate figures. I mean, it's recognizably Scott Bakula.
Yeah.
And, they articulate everywhere. Those figures, they're ambidextrous. Their arms can move a 360. Their heads can go all exorcist. They move everywhere. You can human pretzel these characters.
I like the spacesuit versions they made.
Yes, they had them in those Enterprise Gold spacesuits.
Yep.
But, here's the weird thing about Art Asylum. At that particular time, just little personal story time. I didn't have access to, at that age, the kind of money I did for figures. It was that transitional point kind of between, being a kid with an allowance of Christmas gifts where you were kind of more fending for yourself. And, I couldn't go out and just get those figures as readily. And the Art Asylum ones started to get higher in price. And they were based more for mature collectors. They weren't really for people who wanted to take them out of the box. So I didn't get them early on. I ended up getting them in the box, and they're downstairs. I should have bought them up in the budget trunk of a place in comic book store in Portland about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were like $1. They were not $1 when they were new.
No, far from it.
They were like $15, $20 if I remember it. Because they were big boxes. They were like just huge. And they're bigger than the First Contact Playmate. They're big figures. They're about like 7-8 inches high. They're like that big.
Yeah.
And and with Enterprise, just as a series, I wasn't watching that as consistently as I was some of the others.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point in my life, with some hard stuff happening, and I was a time for living. I guess you could say I was adulting more at that time, trying to figure out how to get this done. I wasn't in a cozy place at that time. I had more adult concerns, and I just didn't have the time often at night to just tune into Star Trek as much as I used to.
Yeah.
Which was really unfortunate. The Enterprise years in general were not the finest moments of my own life, so I wasn't really as into Star Trek.
Yeah.
So, this is going to get into an awkward area here. Because Playmates did get the license, but we're kind of moving out of the realm of Trek Prime there.
Yeah.
We're talking about their Kelvin toys. So here's my question. I should have addressed this early on. Do we or do we not go there? Different Kelvin timelines.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't buy any of those figures from the alternate Star Trek thing, whatever the hell they want to call it.
It's weird. Playmates have the license for that stuff, though. I don't know why they got the license.
Well, if they're going to do it, fine. But it's just toys I'm not buying. The only things that I've been buying now, like the Art Asylum, really covered a great landscape over the figures. They didn't just do NX-01. I mean, they started doing Next Generation figures. They started doing Deep Space Nine and TOS. And they started making the ships and all that stuff. And they were really nice and very detailed and stuff. And that really kind of took me away from even wondering about buying Kelvin. I mean, the only thing that I did buy from the Abrams was their version of the Enterprise, which I bought. I bought that, and
I have that too. I have the J-Day prize.
That's the only thing that I ever bought from that. The rest of it, the props and the figures, I said no, I don't want that.
Now, another company I wanted to mention, I want more of their stuff, but they were expensive at that time, was Art Asylum. Not Art Asylum, but Diamond Select, because they made wonderful starships. And when I couldn't resist was finally having a screen accurate Enterprise E.
Yeah.
Playmates could have easily made that.
Yeah.
They could have easily made that, and I think kids would have loved it because it's a toy. I mean, you could use that as a toy.
But if you go and buy that in a store, you're going to be paying about $60-$70 for that. I mean, that's just I know.
Well, if you remember
Playmates
the Enterprise,
sell it for that high
because the Playmates made weren't all that different. They were like $30-$40. So.
But the quality's different. The detailing is different. So
somewhat, but I don't know. I don't know how, but somehow I always think when I see those things that the price of it is largely the brand. Because
I don't know, but I mean, because Art Asylum, when that started making, I mean, they weren't really that well known until they started doing
Well, again, their focus is not really on toys, though. Their focus is on more adult collector stuff. I mean, I took my Enterprise E to display it, but I think a lot of people carry that in the box.
Yeah.
But, I don't know how you are, but again, to this day, I don't keep anything in boxes. I have a problem with it. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not an insect collector.
Keeping things in boxes often takes up a lot of space.
It does.
Sometimes
like
you can't do that.
I think it's better in boxes if you're planning on reselling them. But
maybe if there's like a rare one or something, you might want to keep that in the box. But if you kept everything you bought and kept the boxes that came with it, your house would be full of boxes. I mean, you wouldn't, you'd have no place to put anything.
Like some of those Enterprise things.
Yeah.
The figures are not that big a deal, but the boxes are huge.
Yeah.
I mean, but like I said, we may have to run into another situation because as society is getting greener, I notice boxes are becoming thinner and more diminished.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at those Enterprise figure boxes they had, I don't think you could do that today at all.
Yeah.
I don't think they would let you have I don't think they manufacture a box that thick.
Yeah. Although DC and Marvel are still doing it, though. I mean, all their figures comes in a box, basically. I mean, and I hate that because it's just, when you take it apart, you got like 5 times the friggin' trash. Well, if you'd have just had it in a blister package or something, would have been better.
Some figures, what they do is they put the bottom of it in a box.
Yeah.
And what they do is they put something around it, but it's not like a thick box.
Yeah. But what you do is you open it, and then you're pulling out a plastic insert. The figure's in that. So now you got a cardboard box and a plastic insert. Both of those have to be thrown in the trash. It's like, well, why do you make this extra garbage just for this one figure? Why don't you just put it in a blister package and just put it up, hang it on the thing like that,
I know what you mean. And Diamond Selected Art Asylum, they really made the best Star Trek toys in a lot of ways. A step above Playmates. But the thing is, at that time, I didn't have the stuff for them. They would just they were breaking my bank. At that point, they were just too expensive. Yeah. And I had other things that was losing my money at that point. And I just. I don't know. I mean, you couldn't.
You had to be more choosy about what you bought.
Playmates, you could buy Star Trek figures and buy other things if you had, $20 or so.
That's
if
right.
You an artist, I don't think that $20 was gone on one thing.
Yeah.
You were. They were more of a people who had a lot of dough on them, and.
Yeah. It's kind of like what they're doing now with those He-Man reissues. It's like this. They look like the same figures, but they're just articulated differently. But they want like $60 to $80 a figure, and I'm like, well.
Yeah, where with the Playmates days, $60 you could buy like 10 figures. Now.
Yeah.
More, but now you pay $60 on one.
Yeah, that's obviously they're just targeting collectors, and that's it.
Right. Those are for people who buy them, and they're going to save them till they're $6,000, and then they'll sell them for the giant 8-inch $6,000 figure when it comes out.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it goes. But I don't play into that stuff. I'm not a collector.
Yeah.
Like this thing came in a box. You got me. It came out of the box.
Yeah.
I still think like a bit. Maybe people might say to me, I think like a little kid. But I thought, if I want a piece of art, I'll get it on a canvas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, art's not a toy. Or it's not a display.
That I ever liked when I used to buy the He-Man stuff, I used to love the artwork on the box that they would make for the vehicles and stuff. And I always tried to keep the box just so I could look at the artwork on it, because it looked like it was painted.
Yeah, or sometimes what you do is like with that bridge set they made you just save the bridge set or something or whatever they made for the. Another thing I wanted to mention, I didn't get these because it's kind of its own little world, and I just figured there was more label slapping. I saw it at an antique store I visited. I think I started the Pink Elephant. It's up in Newport. They had the First Contact Phoenix. Oh, did we talk about the Phoenix they made?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Mine's in good shape. Theirs is all yellowed. I wonder, was this in the house?
It's probably because it's been sitting in the sun. That usually happens because the model was all white, remember, and it had some painted pieces. But if it's all white and you keep it near the window and the sun's on it, after a while it's going to start to yellow.
I always kept those in the dark.
Yeah, I never did that. Put that in the sunny.
Is that why some of the old Nintendos turn yellow too, because you keep them by the sun?
Yeah.
I always wondered if it was in the house of somebody who smoked all the time or something. That could probably
too could do it. Yeah, but usually you can clean that off if it's just tar or something like that.
When you go to an antique store around here, I don't know if you notice it. The whole place smells like what the Tom Snyder show set must have smelled like in the 70s.
Yeah, it's
It smells
moldy.
all like somebody's smoking in there. You know, it's just.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't let you do it in those anymore, but it smells like everybody's smoking in those antique stores.
Yeah.
Everything smells all smoky. And well, I was in this antique store, right? And they had the Star Trek commemorative Barbie doll set, which I didn't bother with because here's my thing. It was just Barbie and Ken and Kirk and Yeoman Rand outfits. That's all it was.
Yeah.
It was just outfits. It wasn't really Star Trek related.
Yeah.
And you know, it was a Barbie thing. And I'm like, you know, I don't collect Barbies because that was when Barbie were getting in the collector. Remember they had like Scarlet Barbie. They had, you know, all these movie franchise Barbies and Kens.
That's right.
And Star Trek just became part of it. But they weren't really Kirk and Rand. They were Barbie and Ken as Kirk and Rand.
Yeah.
It was Barbie cosplay. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Very clearly Barbie and Ken. It was not a Barbie style Kirk. It was a Barbie. It was a Ken style. It was a Ken and a Kirk outfit.
It was a box set that was meant to be left in the box. It was not.
Right. Yeah. And again, I steer away from stuff like that. It didn't feel like it was for me.
Yeah.
We had all this stuff in the cover, like, oh, this is the collector's set. Don't take them out of the box. I'm like, no, I want to do something with these, but they're Barbie. They're not really meant to be open. And these, and it was expensive. I mean, the antique malls didn't cost much, but it was like $25. But when it was new, it wasn't $25.
Yeah.
Those were expensive sets. And, you know, I mean.
Now when they do it now, they don't just take and dress up Ken and Barbie as something else. They actually make the character, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
When you do
Now,
it now,
if they had that, I might have done that. If they had an actual Kirk and Yeoman Rand figure, I might have said, okay, I'll get this. They're not staying in the box, though, but I'll take it. I'm going to get them. But
they made like a Batman and Superman when they did Batman versus Superman, and they had Wonder Woman. Well, I bought those three figures, but they weren't Ken and Barbie. They were just Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. So I got those. It was put out by the same company that makes Barbie, but you know. Yeah,
I know what you mean. It gets kind of to a weird place after a while. So anyway, currently, some people, not particularly me, are waiting on a Star Trek Discovery toy line. But again, we're moving out of Trek Prime territory with that. I mean, it's getting debatable, but I'm not debating it right now. I'm going to stay with the Next Generation up through Enterprise.
I'm not really eager to see anything Discovery related here.
So, like I said, there's toy lines. This is going to be hard for us to discuss because you know, I did see the toys and I had the JJ prize, but you know, again,
that was as far as I was going to delve into that alternate stuff.
If you know the term, are we basically forming a thing where we're kind of Star Trek Luddites?
I don't consider myself a Luddite. I mean, I just
putting our shoes into, you know, the new stuff. But to be quite honest with you, I never thought the Star Trek universe would be separated into camps like this.
Well, it is now because you got some pretty weird people running the franchise. I know you don't like to use that word, but as a whole.
No, I mean, in reality, now it's a business. It's a franchise now.
Well, it is, yeah, to some.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the Star Trek universe. I used to call it the Star Trek universe growing up.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the minute I started hearing it referred to franchise by everybody, that's when things started to go wrong.
Yeah.
Franchise to me is McDonald's and Burger King and Walmart. And when you treat Star Trek like that, it becomes big box Trek.
You're right.
It loses relevance. It becomes pointless.
Yeah. And I think that's the only way they see it now is what's the best way we can maximize profits from Star Trek. And what they're doing is they're looking at the wrong people to make it popular, because the wrong people making it popular are not going to stick around for 50 years.
So I have to
going.
If I see a Discovery toy, you know, it might look cool. Or if I see it might look cool. But then I look at it, and as an adult, I think these are nice, but I really dislike the idea behind it.
Yeah.
I don't like what these are standing for. You know, I did get the Discovery ornament because I wanted the Light of Discovery. Eagle Moss didn't make a Light of Discovery, and I just wanted to have the ship, you know, to scale with the one I made that I told you about.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, you know, when I bought that, it's the first time I bought a Star Trek thing and felt like I was committing some kind of crime.
Yeah.
I hate to think that way, but it feels like I'm supporting something terrible. You know, I mean, there's no boycott for this stuff, but it's like, I just don't like what's behind it.
Yeah. Well, see, you know, you're older now, so you know the backstory about how this stuff is done. I mean, but if you were just a kid again, like you when you started buying these Star Trek toys at the time, it might have been cool. I mean, you wouldn't have known all the story behind it. You probably You know what I'm saying? So it's good for the younger
I
people
must
to get
say,
into
I
that.
was raised to be one thing, a
Yeah,
critical thinker.
yeah,
So even at 8 years old, there were different embargoes.
yeah,
For example, I never asked for one, but if I ever asked for a GI Joe, it would be denied. No
yeah,
militarization of your toys.
yeah,
We're not going to indoctrinate you with militaristic ideas in this household. You have to do that yourself. We're not going to indoctrinate you, so you will not
yeah,
get that.
yeah,
I would not get toy guns. I would not get. I would not get toys that were overtly religious. They didn't want to indoctrinate you with anything.
yeah,
So give me a free slate. Star Trek was fine. The phasers were a bit of a question, but in Star Trek, yeah, you could blow a door open with them, so they're not necessarily going to use to kill people.
yeah,
It was like, oh, don't point that phaser at anybody. You're not going to be doing that. So it was.
yeah,
Remember, I had a kind of a Star Trek-y upbringing.
yeah,
A very mature upbringing about things. It wasn't like shoot to kill kind of attitudes. It was very, very, very mature and very
yeah.
much futurist. So I'm not bragging on myself, but I'm just saying that, I saw the ideas behind certain things. Um, for example, my family, one of those people, if I would see a toy that I like by some company, I don't even know what it was, they'd say, you can't buy that. They own chemical plants in Syria.
Yeah.
That's how it was in my family. So I had that so even then I was always very conscientious.
Yeah.
And, now, and I just, that comes back to me and I know what they're doing with Discovery. I just feel so bad about it now, But with Playmate stuff, I knew I was supporting something that was expressing futurism, that was expressing hope in the future. I'm not seeing that now, and I just have trouble with it.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
why
the thing of it is I haven't seen a single episode of Discovery, but everything that I've read about it and the people that I've spoken to and heard opinions it doesn't inspire me at all to want to go watch it. I
I don't
really,
like having to end every episode with some quip about this new thing that's going on, because at least with the JJ verse, I know exactly what that's supposed to be.
yeah.
That's an
Well,
alternate
even
timeline.
then, I mean, even when I saw the commercials of it, I knew what was going to be focused in the movie, and it's going to be action, 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 action.
Right, right. But you knew what it was going to be. I mean, there was
Yeah,
no pretense it was going to be anything but. You knew it was an alternate universe, and
yeah,
you accepted it as it was. Discovery, nobody knows what it is.
yeah,
It's a mess. So I have trouble dealing with that more than anything, because it's not sure. It's not gelled.
yeah,
It doesn't have a place yet. It hasn't fit itself into a world. It's not JJ, it's not Prime. So I was going to mention the Discovery stuff, but it's hard to mention a series that doesn't know what it wants to be yet, that most people can't see, and that's another thing.
yeah, yeah,
CBS All Access thing is another reason. I don't want to support that.
yeah,
I mean, even if all this stuff was being done, if they were doing all the stuff they're doing now, outside of canon, whatever, if it was on TV, I might say, yeah, but I'm not going to support All Access.
yeah,
I got the Hallmark thing because I know that at least half the money with Hallmark goes to certain charities. So I'm like, okay, I can accept that.
yeah,
But I don't want to support CBS All Access. I don't approve of it. Thank you very much. I think Star Trek, this may sound Harry Muddish, but I think Star Trek should be for all.
hmm,
I'm saying that very literally. I don't think it should be just for those who can buy a streaming service. Thank you.
yeah.
End of speech. so anyway, yeah. You got anything more to say about the toys that from the 70s to the 90s? Well, 60s.
I think I wish that overall the toys would have been a lot better. I mean, it seems like it took forever for them to find the right company to actually do these things in a better and more
I don't
respectful
know. I
way.
don't know if you were that critical about the toys when you were younger. All I remember when the Playmates ones came out, I was excited they even had them. I just.
Well, the Playmates ones were fine for the age that I was at the time when they started coming out. But when I got older, the toys seemed to be, it was like Fisher Price kind of thing. Now, when I was looking at it, it's like they were kind of goofy, and I just would throw them all in a box and I wouldn't look at them. And then all of a sudden, when Art Asylum came on, there was like, okay, that's what I've been waiting on right there. It's like,
I guess with me,
Yeah.
you were, when the Playmate stuff came out, you were in your early 20s, right?
No, I was 16 or 17 when it started coming out, because I was still in school at the time, high school,
Really?
when the Playmate stuff started. Yeah.
Are you sure we're talking about Playmates here? Because Playmates came out around 93.
No, I'm talking about when Star Trek: The Next Generation come out,
Oh, you mean
and they had
Galoob?
the Galoob stuff. But then
Oh, the Galoob.
Playmate stuff started to come out a little bit after Galoob, because Galoob was around very short. And then Playmate stuff.
I don't remember the Playmate stuff coming out until 93-ish, but.
Mm.
That was when I went in there and saw that thing, and they were brand new when they came out. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I always just blame Playmates being a little later. Playmates had Ninja Turtles then in '88.
Yeah. Ninja Turtles. Yeah.
Yeah, Star Trek. I don't remember them having it then. If they did, I would have had it. But I remember it being '93.
No, I remember going to Toys R Us there, and I remember seeing those down there. But
But
anyway, that's yeah. So yeah, I mean, at the time, I liked the Playmates ones pretty well. But it seemed like as I got older, those figures didn't age with me. They just kind of started to get more childish looking, and I was like, I just would shove them all in a box, and I wouldn't look at them, and then all of a sudden, years later, Art Asylum starts making these things, and I was like, oh wow, now that's the figures I've been waiting to get. So I started buying those up.
Yeah, I guess with me, the Playmates do just fine with me because remember, I like them to look decent a little bit on a budget too. With Art Asylum, they didn't feel like toys you'd play with. They felt like something you'd put on a shelf and forget about.
Yeah.
They felt like something you would collect. And the way I dealt with those Star Trek figures, I like to kind of pose them and stuff like that. And the Art Asylum was always worried about breaking them because they were so expensive and you didn't want to mess them up. And
well, they weren't. I mean, the breakable. No, they don't. I mean, the models. If you dropped them on a hard floor, yeah, I mean, you could break them, but they're pretty rugged. I mean, they weren't made cheaply or something.
I don't know. I mean, if I saw them reasonable now, I might deal with them. But I didn't want something I might have my P's and Q's about.
Yeah.
I like to feel like if Playmates were pretty tough, even though they weren't entirely accurate. I mean, they looked enough like the characters to affect.
Yeah.
They weren't awful sculpts.
No.
I mean, maybe they were childish looking, but so Playmates never really bothered me. They certainly weren't, those little figurines you get over at Suncoast. So
yeah.
But yeah, basically with Star Trek toys, it's been a journey, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars really, okay, their first figures weren't that great either, but they kept perfecting
I think what kept Star Wars going wasn't so much just the figures, was that the vehicles. You had the Falcon, you had the X-Wing. Though when you put the figures in those things, then it became more than just the figure. It became something else. It
right,
was
you could create a life for them. And Star Trek didn't always do that. They'd have like a stationary bridge.
That's right.
Didn't have shuttlecraft. They didn't have... But, Star Trek really wasn't as vehicle-oriented as Star Wars was in a lot of ways.
That's true. It wasn't, no.
You were on a starship or you were on a planet, but you didn't have vehicles. Now, they could have totally done it with Nemesis when they had these little Jeeps and everything, but...
But heck, you could have got a G.I. Joe Jeep or thing like that, because it looked like G.I. Joe with the gun and everything in the back. I mean, it was like a rip-off of it, So
yeah, I'm just saying there were more vehicles by that time, but Star Trek isn't really about vehicles so much. It's more about characters and starships.
Yeah.
And the shuttlecrafts are the close. So the shuttlecrafts were nice, but Star Wars is a different thing. When you think about Star Trek toys, it's characters. It's characters you identify with. It's starships you identify with. So Star Trek is character and starship based, where Star Wars is all this other little stuff. Star Wars doesn't have big starships. It has all these little vehicles that are just kind of flying around.
Yeah, exactly.
Just ragtag things.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing. So that's the toy thing. We may have to come back and do a toy show and tell. We got some more stuff because I got some of the toys we talked about here, and I can show them to you, but I just don't have them organized right now. They're in a cellar somewhere. I know people actually have them in storage facilities like climate control paid storage.
Yeah.
I might have to do someday, but not yet. So, I got a box full of Playmate stuff downstairs. It's all Playmates.
Yeah.
Some of which is in less than satisfactory condition. But anyway, like the Voyager I drew with a Sharpie pen on. Yeah. Because I was trying to get it weathered, but I didn't know another way to do it. So, anyway, I didn't always treat my things like they were worthy, and now the Voyager's expensive. But maybe I'll go to an antique store and find one 25 and then not color it. Yeah. But that's where you go to antique stores. You can find them. But anyway, if I recall, next week we're going to be getting into the Next Generation movies, aren't we?
Yep, we're going to start with Generation.
Yep. That's going to be good for me because that was that kind of ties in with the Playmates thing too. Yeah. Because I was around the time I was starting to get them and I was starting to collect them and it's like, oh, we got to play anything just for this movie. So, and Generations is going to be a very similar conversation to the motion picture. So stay tuned. I want to thank my friends over there at Trek Yards, Stuart and Samuel. I want to thank AC Moore for providing this little cap for giving me this decoration. And next week, I should have my surprise to you I was going to have tonight, but for now, we'll have my official 2019, sometimes Trek Prime cap. So, anyway, if you have your Star Trek toys, you know, if you have a couple of them, think about taking them out of the box sometimes. Play with them, trade them, flip them around, whatever. Just have toys are meant to be played with. They weren't museum pieces, so don't worry about it unless you're planning on having a nest egg with them. Enjoy them. We certainly did. I certainly did,
Yeah.
and I enjoy looking at them now. It's fun memories. Sometimes I actually do my little personal robot chicken stuff with them. Just make up little stories or whatever, just funny things, and you can actually have Star Wars figures interact with them. There's a bunch of postcards you can get. Have you seen them where they post Star Trek and Star Wars and Master of the Universe figures, make them do stuff? You can get them.
Yeah.
An artist did this, and they just make them do different things.
Yep.
They put Lego figures, and they're kind of funny.
Yeah.
They're photography pieces I could do a million years ago. Star Trek figures. I could do a whole Star Trek thing. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so next week we'll be doing Generations, and happy 2019, everybody. Live long and prosper.